Hello, everyone. Welcome to July's OSRVC Authors Chat. We are so excited you're here with us this evening as we host the amazing Danielle Jackson as she is celebrating two very exciting things in her author's journey. The first being the 1 year anniversary of her debut novel and our July book, The Accidental Pinup. And the second is the release of her sophomore novel coming out next Tuesday, which we're going to talk about more later this evening. So with that, may I introduce Danielle? Welcome,
Hi.
Danielle.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Okay, everyone. So normally we have everyone submit their questions throughout the evening in the chat panel, but since we have a small group this evening, we're just going to ask everyone to mute themselves if they're not part of the panel to aid in the quality of our recording. And if you have questions, we're going to have these breaks throughout the evening where we will ask people to basically unmute themselves and ask their questions during Q&As. So we'll let you know when those moments are. And so with that, let's get things started. We always like to kick things off with some icebreaker questions. These are just some fun things to warm up with as people are still joining us and getting settled in before we start talking about the accidental pinup. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Ozma for the very first question.
Okay, so if you had to pick a favorite main character from any romance series to be your book, boy, or girlfriend, who would it be?
Oh, wow. That is a really tough question. Um, wow, I'm like drawing a blank. How could I when my first instinct is to go with like classic, and I think I always go back to like Mr. Darcy, which I feel like is a little bit of a cop out, but that's who like springs to mind first because I love like a buttoned up, starchy hero.
All right, that is completely fair.
Yeah.
Um, so we ask all our visiting authors this after the topic came up in one of our first guest books. Do you have a chocolate drawer?
No, I have a much weirder drawer. I have a drawer next, like on my desk, right next to where I sit, that is full of different, like expensive hand creams because I'm obsessed with moisturizing my hands. And so I say expensive, it's like, but anything, like I can go to Bath and Body Works or I'll go to Sephora or, Macy's or wherever, and I'm constantly buying hand cream. It's kind of if I were at home, I'm not at. I was telling you all before. I'm actually at a hotel right now. But if I were at home, I would have tilted my camera over and shown it to you because it's actually really funny.
Awesome.
Yeah.
If you could have any meal from the past with any author, who would you pick?
Oh wow. I think I would pick. I mean, I would pick living legend Nora Roberts, and I think she'd be a great like brunch pal. Like we could just sit and talk for a very long time about anything and everything.
Okay, so here's one of our goofy ones. Which celebrity Chris is your favorite Chris?
Oh, Chris Pine, hands down. Like he's the best Chris, I think. My favorite, personal favorite. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
Another another fun question. If you had to be a shapeshifter, what would be your animal form?
Hmm. This is tough. I mean, my gut says I should be something cool like a werewolf, but I also think it'd be awesome to be like, I don't know, some sort of a bird. I think it'd be really cool to fly. Like, so maybe like a hawk. Still kind of awesome, still like a predator, if you will, but I could fly. That would be cool.
As long as
Okay.
you're not cursed, like Lady Hawk. Don't want to be cursed like
Yeah,
Lady Hawk.
that's true. You know what? You're right. You're right. I didn't think of it that way.
Okay, so if you had to be trapped in a house with five other authors, a hostage writer's retreat of sorts, who would you want to be trapped with?
Hmm. Okay, my first person would be Denise Williams because she just gathers people together. Like she's always ready like for a retreat. So Denise Williams would be one. Um, I'm trying to think of maybe someone like Sharon Sela because she writes romantic suspense. So maybe she could get us out of the situation. I'm trying to think. Um, Chandra Bloomberg, who writes contemporary romance, she writes like foodie contemporary romance, so she could cook for us. I'm trying to think who else. Two more. I would say another contemporary author, Hannah Ernest, who she writes for Karina. She's so funny. So she would like keep us all like she would lighten the mood. Like she would really help us out there. And then number five, oh man, I'm trying to think. Maybe maybe someone like Sarah McLean. So, she has the historical knowledge of various time periods. Maybe she could bring something that we just didn't think of. It'd be real, out of the box.
So we normally ask if you remember the first romance novel you read or the one that got you hooked on romance. But you dedicated the Accidental Pinup to your mother because you stole her romance novels as a kid,
Yes,
which we can relate with.
of
So
course.
we wanted to know, was there a particular romance of hers that got you hooked on the genre?
I love this question so much. No, because I was like 9 or 10, honestly. Um, and my mom, I always like give the backstory. Like my mom, like you saw, Dr. Cheryl R. Jackson. She has her PhD, so there was and she was a nurse. So like we had everything in our house from medical journals to like book club fiction because she's honestly she now that she's retired, I think she's in 4 book clubs, I think. So that you understand. But then also romance novels because like she wanted that escape. She was an OR nurse. She needed that escape. So I mean, I think it was more the size of like Harlequin category romances, and they were little, so my little hands were just like, let's read them. But I do like to point to the first book that she thought she was giving me, like the first romance that she was like, she's ready. Here is this romance. And I was like, in my mind, I was kind of like, I've read this already. But it was Born in Fire by Nora Roberts. Speaking of Nora Roberts, it was Born in Fire. And I think she gave it to me, I think I was like 16 or 17. And that was probably the right time for me to actually read that book. So getting that book at that age from my mom, and for her to be like, here is this love story, here's this great book I think you're gonna love, and handing it to me. So that's probably the most significant one. And then I mean, I was reading romance before then, and I've been reading it since then, but like that was really like the one that I like really hold dear in my heart because it was, my mom was giving it to me.
I can completely understand that because I was stealing my mother's when I was like itty bitty. And at that point, you don't remember the titles,
No.
you're just reading them. And so people will be like, "What's the first one you read?" I'm like, "I don't know. I read so many of them and I just stole them." It was just like, and then quickly put them back. So I completely get
Yeah.
it. So it's time to talk about what everyone came here to chat about, our book of the month, The Accidental Pinup. So one of the things our group was most curious about was what inspired you to want to center this book's story around modeling, fashion, and lingerie.
So I start I'm trying to think of what really came first, but I knew I wanted my main character, Cassie, to be a photographer. I've always loved photography. I was a photo editor of my high school yearbook. It's something that I've always been interested in and inspired in. I have family members who are professional photographers, and I knew that that's what I wanted her to do as her profession. So I think that's really where it started. But then it was kind of like, as I was developing this character, I was like, well, what is going to make this character tick? She was one of those characters where I think I put like all of like my favorite qualities of like really strong women into her. And I was kind of like, I need to figure out what makes her tick. And if she's a photographer, the thing that would make her uncomfortable would be being in front of the camera rather than behind the camera. And I was like, okay, let's ramp this up. And it's going to be a lingerie photo shoot, which even though she is this confident, curvy, amazing, plus size or fat woman, she calls herself fat in the book. Um, I knew I needed to kind of just, it really was like a conflict thing. I was like, what is going to make this the most uncomfortable for her? And that's what it was. And then of course her professional rival, who's also super hot, is going to be the one taking the pictures of her. So that's really where it came. But I've always been interested in, I think, you can call it whatever you'd like, the body positivity or body neutrality or whatever, just kind of embracing the body that you're in, kind of movement. And I think, in the age of something like Instagram, you've kind of seen it move from Instagram over to TikTok and everywhere in between. But yeah, so that's really why I wanted that to be kind of the focus. And I wanted her to be this confident woman. She's not, she has moments where she is uncomfortable or she feels insecure, but it's not because of how her body is or what her body looks like. Like, she likes her body. She knows that Reed likes her body just from his reactions. Like, that's not it. It's more of like kind of the situation and the melding of professional with the personal and all of that together.
So a follow-up to that question is,
Mhm.
did you do a lot of research on those industries to write the book? And if you did you walk away having discovered a brand that was doing a good job with diversity and body positivity?
Yeah, I did a lot of research. So I wrote the bulk of this book during National Novel Writing Month, actually of 2019. So, like, right before the pandemic hit. So I was drafting during that time. And so I often wonder, like, if the pandemic hadn't hit, would I have found a boudoir photography studio to do it? Also, the underlying question that probably will come up later is, have I done a boudoir photography photo shoot? And no, I have not. And part of the reason is because I would never in a million years do one, but I wrote about it instead. Um, so we'll see. Someone recently suggested that, like, for my next like big birthday, like, that be what I do, and I was like, I may pencil that one away. Um, but yeah, so when I was drafting it, so the thing I love the most about kind of boudoir photography is you can go online and follow studios and see the work they're doing. And then you can go in and follow the individual photographers, and you can, of course, like, reach out to them if you need to, and things like so. Yeah, I feel like my research was so fun because I was just like looking at amazing, beautiful photographs of people in stunning lingerie. And then as for the actual lingerie, I would say my biggest inspiration was the line Savage X Fenty, which Rihanna is the creator of. She does such an incredible job of making sure that her lingerie line, not just in the campaigns, is inclusive, but that they actually fit real people in real life. And I will say too, in her more recent campaigns, or their more recent campaigns, they've actually like broadened the diversity and body size also to the men's side of things and the non-binary side of things. So I just think they do a really excellent job doing that. I myself am a very well-endowed woman, so I'm always looking at like lingerie, trying to find cute lingerie that'll also be supportive and do what they're supposed to do. So some brands that I also really like, there's one called Elomi, Elomi, and they have like really fun, beautiful lingerie. There's a site called Playful Promises that is kind of like a hub. They have different brands that all go there. And that's another one. They're based in the UK, but they do ship to the US. So those were a few of the brands that I found really a lot of inspiration from.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, of course.
Um, a lot of romance novels have fairly quick and very compact timelines. What made you
Mhm.
want to spread the timeline of the Accidental Pinup over 9 months? And what tricks, if
Oh.
any, did you use to ensure timeline continuity while drafting and writing? Because that's kind of tricky a lot of times when you're spreading
Yeah.
things out.
Yeah. Okay. So there were two things. One is that, similar to like traditional publishing, like ad campaigns for like major brands take a long time, like from start to finish. It's not the exact same timeline, but it goes through like kind of these similar hoops where it's like you have like once the person creates their vision, you then, it goes through the different departments and everyone has like their say in things. So that was one thing that kind of elongated the timeline. And then the other thing kind of went hand in hand is the subplot of Cassie's best friend Dana being pregnant. And that really was a trick to keep things in line. Like, I was like, okay, if Dana is this many months pregnant, that this is how much time has passed in the book. So that was one thing that I did. And that was actually and then also I have to shout out my copy editor. Her name is Erica. She was really integral to like helping me figure that out, because even she was like, okay, if she's this many weeks pregnant here in this one scene, she actually needs to be like X amount of weeks pregnant. Like we had to kind of go back and forth and really like streamline that timeline.
We were actually impressed because we thought the timeline, like there weren't sometimes you can see a lot of blips
Yeah.
in that way, and we really did not notice that.
Oh, good, good, good.
Was there a character in the book that you felt most personally connected with?
I think in this book, it was probably the character of Sam, who is she's the office assistant in this book, and then in the second book she has been promoted to office manager. And but she's very introverted, but she's kind of grumpy, um things that I identify with quite a bit. And and but she's also fiercely loyal. Like she'll do anything for this group of friends, and that is what I look for in my friends. The friend group in both of my books so far, they are really like the connections are based on real friendships. They're not like, person to person like parallels, but a lot of the things that these friends do together, and they're very close, and things like that is inspired in real life. And in fact, my very first job out of college, I actually worked for Sourcebooks. I was the very first publicist for Sourcebooks Casablanca, the romance imprint. But I am still like really close friends with those friends from that job, even though we've all gone off and done different things. There are a couple of friends who still work there. But it's well over 10 years ago now. And we just, we've kept in touch and we're really close. And I think sometimes people are like, are you really that good of friends, like with your work friends? And I think, yeah, you definitely are. You spend so much time at work with these people day in and day out. So I definitely was like, no, this felt really real to me. And so I hope people like that aspect of it.
Your characters were very good, and it was a very good fun crew of friends. So
Yeah.
looking forward to the next book.
Awesome.
So, both Cassie and Reed have very complicated family dynamics, but in very different ways. What was the inspiration behind using this device to add additional conflict beyond what was already a very complex, multi-layered workplace drama already?
Yeah. Oh, I love this question. So one thing I did with the character of Reed is I wanted him to be very much this is gonna sound so weird. But I wanted him to very much be like kind of a typical white man, in that he hasn't had to work very hard. He still makes a ton of money. He is good at his job. Like, I'm not saying he's bad at his job. He's good at what he does, but he doesn't really take a lot of risks. He has kind of more than once, I think I said, he kind of coasts by. Like, he just does what he needs to do. He gets the job done and he moves on to the next. Um, I wanted him, as the more successful person, to have the messy backstory. And I wanted Cassie, as a Black woman who is excellent at her job, works really hard, is very passionate, and is very likes to show that she's passionate in a very professional kind of way, because they do have that conversation about how she doesn't get to kind of be passionate necessarily, but I wanted her to have the very supportive, like, parents and friends who are there to uplift her in ways that she needs to be, um and for her to still have to work really hard, because as a woman of color, and I have lots of friends who are women of color from varying backgrounds who have had to go through that, where they've had to, you always hear the thing, you have to work 2 or 3 times as hard as a white counterpart, and especially a white man. So yeah, that really, I wanted that to be there, and I wanted them also to have those conversations. I that's probably the one thing that even I was kind of like, is this too much? Because I feel like they have that conversation right away, and where it's like, no, this is why my work ethic is the way it is, and I'm going to tell you how it is so you understand like what I'm up against. And I was like, wouldn't they have had that conversation right then and there? But it was really important for them to kind of establish that part of their relationship pretty early on, because it does kind of come back at the end full circle. Did I answer your question? I hope it did.
Yeah, no, I
Okay.
mean, yeah.
Okay.
And oh, you definitely accomplished what you wanted to accomplish with Reed. He
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I've worked with too
Yeah.
many of these men.
Right. Yes, exactly.
So, let's take a pause here, to see if anyone in, our basically our audience tonight has any questions for you about the book. If you've got a question right now, we ask that just people don't talk over one another, give each other a chance to talk one at a time, but you can take yourself off mute and ask your question. And we'll do a QA session right now before moving on. Maybe we have shy people tonight. Susan, I see you had a comment in the chat. I don't quite understand.
Oh, that was the discussion about Sarah, because she did all that research about block picks
Oh, yeah.
for that one book. So she could get you out of that hostage situation by picking the block.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Or blowing up the building.
That too.
I mean,
Yeah.
she loves to have people in her books blow things up. So, yeah. But, okay. If no one has any questions right now, we will move on and talk about the book that's coming out next week. So, Ozma, I'll let you take on the next question.
So excitingly, next Tuesday, August 8th, Accidentally in Love is being released, which is super exciting. For those of us who we don't have to wait long now to see what happens next.
Yeah.
However, did you know that Russ's story would be next when you were writing the Accidental Pinup? And what are you allowed to tell us about him and Sam's book?
Yeah. Yes, I think I was pretty sure I wanted Sam and Russ to be book 2, because as soon, they interact very briefly at the big photo shoot, the big orgy photo shoot at the end, near the end of the book, and then again kind of at the very end at the rooftop party. So they they immediately are just like almost like oil and water, but also kind of like, what else is happening here? And so I love a grumpy sunshine dynamic. I especially love when in a heterosexual relationship, when when the woman is the grumpy one. I think that's just very attractive. I think it's very fun. So that's where that came from. And then as far as their story, yeah, we can talk about it. It's a opposites attract, or grumpy sunshine, and it's a summer fling setup where Russ kind of knows at the end of the summer he has this opportunity to go to culinary school. So he kind of links up with Reed's friend James, who owns the restaurant Simone's, and he really likes that whole kind of, he likes the hustle and bustle of working in a kitchen, and he's kind of doing more bartending, but he's very much interested in becoming a chef. So he is hopefully going to culinary school at the end of summer, but he also has finally like figured out a way to kind of actually talk to Sam and for her to take him somewhat seriously. So it seems, not that she lets it on too much, but, and so they decide to have a summer fling, but it takes them a little while to get things going because they both have a lot of feelings, both about each other, but also just in their regular lives as well. And, Sam's arc in this book too is about, she's kind of going through, burnout. She realizes that she's taking on a lot at work. She doesn't want to let down, not just her boss, but also her best friends. Working together, can kind of, you have to figure out that balance. So she has to figure out like what's next for her in her career, and she thinks she doesn't have time for anyone, even if it is, very handsome Russ Montgomery. She's not sure she wants to make that level of commitment. And so that's why the idea of a summer fling is very attractive to both of them. But then, of course, those feelings I've talked about earlier come back into play because they start to have them for each other in a really real way. And they have to figure out what to do before it's too late.
Awesome. So I guess the other question leads into is this series planned to be a trilogy? And if so, are James and Kit going to be getting a book? Because there seems to be some fireworks going on between them in the background of the Accidental Pinup too.
Yeah, we'll have to see what happens. As of right now, there isn't, at least with Berkeley, as of right now, there is no plan for a third book, but we will see. I would love nothing more than to have Kit and James get together because they have a really fun dynamic. There's definitely a push and pull, and they definitely have kind of a friends with benefits set up, going on. So yeah, we will, fingers crossed, but as of right now, there isn't, at least from Berkeley, there isn't a plan for that.
Still on the topic of other characters in the book,
Mhm.
will we be seeing more of Dana and Ricky's story in the future?
Yeah, Dana and Ricky are definitely in book 2. In fact, I got my finished copies not too long ago, and we're gonna hopefully go to Buckingham Fountain and like take pictures, although that's a whole story. Because they're setting up for Lollapalooza. Will we be able to get over there? I don't know. It's like we were like, we're gonna do it. Anyway, I'm in Chicago right now. So but yeah, so Dana and Ricky show up. Definitely Cassie and Reed are there. Yeah, a lot of the characters who you kind of meet, that core group of friends, like they're definitely all in book 2.
Awesome.
Yeah.
'Cause we definitely want to see more of them. So we were wondering about that. So
Good, yeah.
all right. So let's back up just a little bit.
Mhm.
So the Accidental Pinup celebrated a huge milestone earlier this month with its 1-year release birthday. Congratulations.
Thank
So that's
you.
a huge milestone for you as a debut author. So the next few questions are going to be asking you to reflect back on the past year and your experience as a writer. So obviously, when you traditionally release, it's got written way before that point, but you've had a year, your book baby out in the world though. So,
Mhm.
so the first thing is, what has been the biggest thing you learned over the past year since releasing the book?
Ooh, I would say it's probably, I don't know that I learned this because I feel like I always preface this question with, I knew more about the publishing process than the average like debut author because I worked in publishing. So I kind of know, not all, but a lot of what goes on. But I think it was really important to experience that, like, once you write the book and it's published, it isn't yours anymore as an author. Like, it's still my book, obviously. My name is on the cover, my picture is in the back of it, but it belongs to readers now as well. And that is a really, it's not quite bittersweet is not the word, but it is interesting that now it belongs to people and people love it, and and people don't love it, and that's 100% like part of the game. um and so yeah, I think it was just really experiencing that and like understanding how I feel about books, because I am a reader first and foremost. And it's like you get so possessive over books or characters or whatever it may be, and you feel some kind of way about it. And so it has been really cool to experience people doing that with the book that I wrote too.
So in this book, Cassie had a surprise loop in her career path.
Mhm.
You started your career in publishing. Did you always want to publish a book, or was this a change in direction for you?
I've always been interested in books. I knew, if you go back and look at, like in second grade and it said, what do you want to be when you grow up? It was an author. That's so I'm like living, 7-year-old Danielle's dream, which is really awesome. Um, I think though, having worked in publishing, I often wonder, like, if I hadn't worked in publishing, if would I have started trying to get published earlier? Again, because I know how the sausage is made. It's not pretty. um, it's really not. So it's one of those things where I think I just needed to wait until I really felt really strongly about what I had been working on, because I've always been writing. I've always written anything and everything that I could. So I think it was like kind of deciding on romance, deciding on contemporary, just like as I made those decisions and really was able to kind of put, pen to paper, typing on a screen or whatever, and really just feeling like this was going the direction I wanted it to go. That was like, I just needed the right time for that. So I think, yeah, that's kind of where I come down on that. So I always wonder, like, would I have started in like my mid 20s or something, rather than my late 30s, to really start this publishing journey. But I feel like it was like the right place at the right time for when all of this happened for me.
So this kind of goes along with what you're just talking about. What is the real difference, or what's different going through the publishing process as an author versus as an employee at a publishing company?
Yeah, this is great. This is it's one of those it's like a hard question to answer, because I don't know. I don't know. It really, there is so much that is not in an author's control. Like, really. And again, it was like I knew that, but it's really different when you experience it. I mean, it's, I know that publishers pay to have their books on end caps at Barnes and Noble, or where on tables in Barnes and Noble, or in Walmart and Target, and like, and it's just one of those things where it's like sometimes your book gets chosen and sometimes your book doesn't. And there is really not much that authors can do to change that. It really comes down to sales and marketing, and where funds are allocated, and what space is available, and does Colleen Hoover have a book coming out the same month as yours, or whoever. That's just like the first big name that came to mind. But I mean, she probably did have a book coming out then and now, so. But yeah, so like I said, I think it's like kind of, and that kind of also goes in with what I was saying, when the book like doesn't belong to me, it also belongs to readers. Like, there's a lot of control, and I think a lot of authors would admit this, like, we are very type A individuals, and so relinquishing control over things can be a little difficult or hard to swallow. And so that's probably the biggest difference, I would say, between publishing employee and author.
So piggybacking onto that
Mhm.
question, what did you find the most challenging in the process of writing or slash publishing this book?
Mhm. Um, I have a lot of friends who are authors, and no one talks about how many times you end up reading your own book. Like, you know, you're going to, you know, revise, and you know you're going to have to go through copy edits, and you know you're going to have to go through revisions, and then the proofreader gets it, and then you have to look at it to make sure the discussion question works or whatever it is. There is like, how many times can I put my own book like on my Goodreads count goal, you know? Like, because I feel like I think I read it like probably 10 or 12 times, you know, really, honestly, like start to finish. So, yeah, no one talks about that. I think we need to talk about it more. I think authors need to just be really upfront about that. We read our books a lot, but then also, I'm really proud of myself that I was able to answer these specific questions about these characters, because then it's like you read it 12 times and then you don't remember any of it. So I think it's like, it's almost like a trauma response, because you're just like, oh, this book, I can't anymore. So yeah.
Well, you're about to start a whole new book to start talking about it constantly, where you won't have to talk about this anymore.
It's true.
Or you say, I understand now why. I mean, I, inherently, I knew that. I'm glad you answered that question that
Hmm.
way, because I inherently knew that, because I have a lot of friends who are authors, and
Hmm.
I've copy edited for them, and I've read their books a lot of times
Yeah.
doing that. So inherently, I knew that answer. But I also had a lot of authors say, I haven't read this book in, like, Loretta Chase has been on here. She's like, I haven't read this
Hmm.
book in 20 years. When someone asks the question, and like understanding why that is the answer makes so much sense now when you think about when they're going through the process, that they probably had to read the book 20 times during the process, that you probably wouldn't want to ever read it again after that.
Yeah. Yep,
So
totally.
it,
This makes me think of this funny, this is a total aside, but I love to digress. My mom, I can't remember where she was. I think she may have been in Vegas. She saw like Diana Ross did a very short residency, and at some point she like, people will like yell out songs they want her to sing. And there was one where the band knew it, but Diana Ross did not know it. And she was just like, this song came out like 45 years ago. I don't know what it is. So I think she just was like, you all sing it. And I was like, I relate to Diana Ross in that instance.
So I want to pony back. You were just talking about your author friends, and so
Yeah.
this is a question about your author friends. Were there any specific author friends you relied on through the process as a debut author?
Yeah, definitely. The two that come to mind immediately are Melanie Johnson and Angelina M. Lopez. So during the pandemic, when we were all in lockdown, with in like partnership with Love Sweet Arrow, we did a book. We called ourselves the Boozy Book Broads, and it was just a monthly virtual like interview series where we'd invite other authors on, and we would sit down. We'd have like a drink of the night, and we would just talk. We would talk about bookish stuff, and most of the time we would line it up with authors who had new releases, but other times we just had on people we were interested in talking to. And so they were there when I got my agent, and then they were, and you know, just everything, the submission process. They were like the two people that I could just go to with anything, because at that point they both had multiple books come out, or had multiple books come out, and so they were really just so supportive. I talk to both of them regularly, um, and they in turn though also introduced me to a whole bunch of people too. Like, they are just really good. So even though I was a part of the industry, and I have been for so long, it was still, you know, you get introduced as, you know, as an author, so it is a little bit different. And they were such an important part of that, and I'm just so grateful. They were really cool. Yeah.
So another portion of the writing process
Mhm.
is, was there a difference between writing the first book and the
Mhm.
second book in your writing process?
Um, Not totally. So, like I mentioned, I wrote the first book in the end of 2019 into the pandemic, and I think I started writing book 2 like almost immediately. Like I just kept going. So at least for the initial draft of Accidentally in Love, it was still kind of like I was writing for myself. But I will say the revision process, like between book 1 and book 2, was drastically different because, it's like from the start, my editor was now a part of the process, whereas before it was really just me and my agent. At that point, I really didn't have kind of a regular critique group either. So really, it was just like, really, it was me kind of nitpicking everything down, and then my agent coming in and having her suggestions, and we really worked on that book together. So then book 2, though, it was like there was a big overhaul of like the front, and the front, like probably first 2/3 of it, I not completely rewrote, but like really went in and did a lot of work. I added in stuff and took stuff out, and it was just so the process was different in that it was just a different way of working, but like as for my actual drafting, that was relatively the same.
Okay, so gonna pre-warn you, this is potentially scary question here coming
Okay.
up. So you've finished writing the second book. It's getting ready to release. You're about to go on book tour for it, but the writing bug is going on, we know, probably in the background of your head. So
Yeah.
what's next for you? Are you actively writing? Did you take a
Mhm.
break from the writing? What's going on? What's next? Are you focusing just on the book tour, or what you focusing on at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, right now, yeah. So, I mean, book tour is generous. I'm staying in like driving distance of my home. But yeah, I am really like the next probably month of August. I really am I'm trying to be very like kind to myself and not be like, you need to be writing, you need to be drafting. Um, but I think a lot of authors will admit this. It's really hard to turn off that, need to write. So, I mean, I'm working on, so I just, in fact, I think my agent has it now and is hopefully taking it out soon. I'm kind of doing a little bit of a switch in genre. It's more of kind of a contemporary fiction or women's fiction, if you will. Um, but still very romantic. There's still a romantic storyline, and I'm not spoiling this. They stay together. I'm a romance author. They're gonna be together in the end. But it is a shift in genre, though, even more, a little bit more, in that it has kind of a magical realism-ish angle to it. So magical things kind of just happen, and yeah, so I had a lot of fun drafting that. So hopefully we will have something to announce, in the next couple of months or so. We will see. And then so I'm kind of but I also I feel like I have a bunch of ideas for like a romance. So maybe once I have a little bit more downtime, I will sit down and start drafting probably another contemporary romance. I think the one that I want to work on next will be contemporary romance.
Sounds great. So, ooh, it looks like, ooh, perfect timing. Well, we were going to take a break to do Q&A here anyway. Megan, do you want, or Madison? Gosh, Meg, I'm so used to throwing to Megan for these chat panel questions. Madison, do you want to ask this question yourself that you just threw in the chat window?
No, but I will.
I'll read it out loud if you want me to read it.
Yeah,
I
go
just
ahead.
wanted to give you the opportunity. All right, I'll read it for you, Madison. It sounds like you choose the traditional method of publishing because you were in the industry. Do you ever think you would try self-publishing, or would you have gone that route if you had not been in the industry?
This is an excellent question. I probably did go the traditional route because that is what I knew about. I don't want to say I would never do self-publishing. I think there is something to be said. I think some people really love having 100% control over every single aspect. I am just the type of person, I know that I get so like anal retentive about things that with that much control, I may never actually release something because I will continue to keep going back and fixing it and changing this. And, is the font on the cover right? Is this illustrator the right one? Like, I would, yeah, so I don't know. I would have to really think about self-publishing. But like, I know a lot of people who really love it and have been really successful. So that is that, and it moves a lot quicker than traditional publishing. That is for sure. So it's definitely something I have thought about. So we will just kind of, we'll see what happens going forward.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions? I mean, if you don't want to ask them yourself, you can definitely throw them in the chat window. I'll read them for you, or I can have Megan do it. I'll give Megan her job back. So, and we
I
will.
actually, I
Okay, go
actually
ahead.
have a question. Your book, of course, is coming out next week, but
Mhm.
is there any book by somebody else in the romance genre that's coming out in the fall that you're really looking forward to?
Yeah, so I had the opportunity. So I mentioned Angelina M. Lopez earlier. I got to read her new book, her new contemporary romance called Full Moon Over Freedom. I read it a couple of months ago. If you read After Hours on Milagro Street, or even just like followed kind of the buzz that that book has generated over the last year, this book definitely follows up to that really well. It's so fun. There's, I think in After Hours on Milagro Street, there was a very slight paranormal, like, is there a ghost? Is there not a ghost? Kind of happening in this old bar situation. And she plays with like kind of a paranormal element a little bit more in Full Moon Over Freedom. It's a second chance romance. It is just as sexy, like right off the bat, like that first book was. Yeah, so that's definitely what I'm looking forward to. We talked about Sarah McLean. I was again lucky enough to get to read Knockout. I read Knockout about a month ago. It's really good. It's like what she's been teasing with Imogen and Tommy over the last couple of years, really. Is definitely in this book. It's so good. I really loved it. I was talking to someone else, like a casual romance reader friend, not anyone in the industry, and I was just like, no, if you start reading the Hell's Bells series, like you just want the next book like right away. So I actually told this person, I was like, you should wait for the fourth book so you can just read them all back to back to back. But because as soon as that book finished, I won't spoil, but as soon as this book finishes, you want Duchess's book. And I'm really mad that we don't have it. Um, so yeah, those are two coming that I'm really, so Knockout, I think we all know, comes out the end of this month, and then Full Moon Over Freedom comes out in September.
Awesome. Okay. Any more questions? We'll have one more chance to ask questions, just free for all at the end here. So, but if we don't have any more, this is a good one.
Ooh, oh
Favorite
gosh, I
hand
don't
cream.
even know. How can I answer this? I think an excellent, basic, great hand cream, like for anyone, is just the Kiehl's like shea butter hand cream. However, if you want a really good dupe, and they don't have it all the time, but most of the time, Trader Joe's has a really great hand cream that is almost exactly the same. And it's like a fourth of the price. It's like $7. It's amazing.
Always good to know.
Yeah.
Okay. So Danielle, these last questions are what we call rapid fire, and they're just what they sound like, quick round robin style, whatever pops in your head, just say it and we move on to the next one. So
Okay.
the very first one, favorite liquid fuel while writing.
Um, Probably just English breakfast tea with some honey. Yeah.
If you could only have one streaming service, which would it be?
I think Netflix.
Okay. Are you an early bird or night owl?
I am a reluctant early bird. I just after I can only sleep for so many hours and I just wake up.
Paper, or audio?
Oh, paper.
Okay. Best escape, winter mountain getaway, warm island hideaway.
Warm Island Hideaway for sure.
Tall, dark, and handsome, or blonde and beefy?
Tall, dark, and handsome.
Okay. Speed reader or poring over every line.
Man, I think I would say speed reader. Yeah.
More fun, Prince Charming or Reformed Rake?
Reformed Drake.
All right. That wraps that up. So, all right, everyone, this is your last chance to get your questions in. So if you've got something to ask, speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay. Well, I'm going to wrap it up then. So, well, thank you everyone again for joining us tonight, and a huge thank you to Danielle. It's just been delightful to spend the evening with you and to read your debut novel this July ahead of the release of the second one. Just thank you so much. Hopefully you've had a wonderful night, because we've had a wonderful night here with you.
Yes, this was so fun. Thank you so much. I'm so appreciative of you guys reading my debut. And yeah, and I mean, you've promoted it better than I don't even have to give my spiel about like it comes out on Tuesday or on August 8th, you know. So yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
All right. Well, I have a couple just quick announcements before we close out this evening. We're going to be hosting our next OSRBC Authors Chat on August 28th, with our guest being Zio Axelrod. So make sure your calendars are blocked now. Next week, we're going to be kicking off our August book, The Girl with Stars in Her Eyes. The full schedule is going to be posted this evening on our site and on Instagram. But if you've seen the events already posted, they're kind of interwoven in there. So you already kind of have seen it. We are going to be hosting our read-alongs on both Zoom and on Fable for those who want to participate there. If Monday nights at 9 p.m. are too late for you, you can definitely participate in the discussions there on Fable in the app. Our site will have the link to be able to join into the book club there on Fable. You just need to download the app. You do not have to buy the book through Fable. You can use whatever form you want to. And if you're reading it on your tablet or phone, you can copy, paste whatever passage you want to share your quotes, put in your discussion questions directly into the app. Just like you would if you were reading the actual text in Fable. So it's just an extra step to do the copy and paste. So you have that ability. Let's see. Oops, Megan said I forgot to bring it up here, but I have my copy of the book. Oh, you have your copy of the book too already. I found it in the wild at my indie last week. Oh, good job, Megan.
Some of the publishers sent to the indie bookstores earlier because they weren't sure if there was going to be the strike
Right.
by CBS on August 1st. Our indie bookstore has a lot of the August books already as well.
I say, good job, Megan. I say, have you read it already, or are you waiting? You're being good and waiting.
It's on the list. It's on the list. I just
Yeah.
All right. So, but yeah, with that, everybody, I'll let you guys go. Thank you so much. And, but yeah, keep your eyes out on the Facebook site and on the Instagram site for all the other updates. So, and if you have any questions about how Fable works or anything, just send a message on either the Facebook site or the Instagram site, and we can answer those for you. So, okay. Good night.
thank you so
Night.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Danielle.